Welcome, everyone, to the Movie Manny Podcast, Episode 2. I think one of the main intentions of starting this podcast is that I know we're heading into a wild-ass fucking year. I know 2024 is going to be wild. There is no doubt about it. This is, an election year, but among other things, there's just a lot of shit going on. So it's like I've been through these cycles, and it's like I wanted to intentionally make this cycle something different. I wanted to step out in front of it, and that is the birth of the Movie Manny Podcast, because no matter what side of whatever kind of issue you're on or whatever kind of political spectrum, movies, I'm telling you, movies keep us connected. And before I get into anything else, I just really wanted to start this podcast with the people who inspired me to make this podcast. There are certain people that have come into my life that have had a really huge positive effect on me. And I've got to shout these people out. Whenever somebody comes into your life and they do things that are affecting you in a positive way and causing you to level up in some way or to challenge yourself, I feel like you have to speak their name somehow. You have to basically put it out there and just give them their flowers, give them gratitude. And one of the first people I would like to mention is Gabby from Nightmare on Sedgwick Avenue podcast. Gabby is also coincidentally going to be our guest on episode 2 of the Movie Manny Podcast. And it's going to be awesome. We're going to talk movies because she also is a huge, huge fan of movies, of music, horror movies especially. And she basically had asked me to be on her podcast, maybe, around August or September, somewhere around there. She asked me to be on her podcast, and I was honestly a little nervous. I was like, oh man, what am I going to talk about? I need to brush up on my knowledge? Am I going to forget something? All these wild thoughts that go through your head and stop you from doing things. But, I'm so glad that I got over those fears and I did the podcast, and it was such an awesome experience. Such an awesome experience. I felt so comfortable talking and everything like that. Gabby was such a great interviewer, such a great conversationalist, and she really pushed me out of my comfort zone, and she got me talking about movies. And when the podcast was done recording, I could not stop thinking about, man, that felt so good. That was an awesome, awesome feeling, being able to talk about movies. And it really planted a seed in my head that I just couldn't stop thinking about. I was like, wow, I want to talk about movies more. Even if it's just talking to myself, I want to just see a movie, and I have all these thoughts in my head. You can call them criticisms or just, insights or whatever. And I just want to speak them. A lot of the times I'm just thinking them. So it's like, this is a great outlet. And thank you, Gabby, for showing me the way. And also, I got to shout out Gabby for last year in June, inviting me out to a San Diego Film Consortium event at the Adams Avenue Theater. I don't usually go out to events like that. I'm, mostly home or working or anything like that. But she invited me out to that. Another thing that got me out of my comfort zone, and it really was an awesome event. And that is the place where I met Eddie from Popcorn Reef. Gabby introduced me to Eddie, and that opened up another portal in my mind. So I really wanted to shout out Gabby, tell her thank you for pushing me out of my comfort zone. Thank you for inviting me to the Film Consortium, introducing me to Eddie, and thank you for having me on your podcast and really just showing me that there is another path out there for people who love movies, that there's a way to talk about it. So and that's why, I'm very excited to interview Gabby too. I have a lot of questions for her. We're going to talk about a lot of movies, and I just want to hear her thoughts on things. So, Gabby, thank you so much. Also, I would like to shout out the good people over at Platform Collection. Kelsey Ray, Gene Flo, OG Hip Hop Eddie, Parker Edison. They held a podcast class over the summer, where it was like a 6-week or 10-week course. And, every Tuesday we'd meet up, and I go to the Jacobs Center. Going to these classes had a huge effect on me. They inspired me in so many ways to level up the podcast game, or just they showed me different podcasts out there. They showed me different ways of people doing it and just different examples of what was out there. And Parker explained how he started his podcast, and Kelsey Ray explained how he has been doing podcasts for so long and how he created all his different kind of podcasts. These are OGs in the podcast game, and they were gracious enough to host a free class for the community. And I was there and I fucking had an amazing time. And something triggered in my head there where I was like, wow, I got something in my head where I was like, I want to do more with the podcast than I'm already doing. We've been doing Skills Pay Bills for a long time, and I love Skills Pay Bills, but the class inspired things in my head of how we can make it better, or how I could try something new or do different things. And that's part of why I'm here right now doing the Movie Manny podcast, is that class. It was meeting Gabby. It was taking that podcast class and really just not being able to get those thoughts out of my brain, both of them, and just pushing myself to be like, hey, if these thoughts won't leave your brain, you got to do something about it. You got to try. You got to do something when it comes to movies, because movies are something you think about and talk about all day. So it's like, why wouldn't you do a podcast about movies? Why wouldn't you? And it was just that thought and meeting those people that have really pushed me to keep pursuing this and pushing it farther than I could have ever even imagined. So thank you. And of course, I would also like to shout out Eddie from Popcorn Reef. He was guest number 1 on the Movie Manny podcast, and what he's doing with the film screenings all around San Diego and the movies that he's showing and curating and the website he's created and just bringing the film community together, it has been nothing short of inspiring. And I plan to go to all of his film screenings, to maybe even document one of the events one day, and just to keep supporting Popcorn Reef, because that is another thing in my life that has pushed me to create this podcast. So I give thanks to all of them. And speaking of the first Movie Manny podcast, it was recorded at the 10th Avenue Arts Center. So basically the same day that Eddie was doing the January Giallo series in the downstairs room and the main stage for the first time, that's when we recorded the interview. That's when we recorded the podcast. I actually got there around 4:00. The screening didn't start till 7, so we had a few hours. The owner of the 10th Avenue Arch, Jeff, super nice guy, super nice. Every time I come, so welcoming. And I basically got there a little early. He welcomed me in. He showed me the room, allowed me to set up and everything like that. And right when I walked into the main room where the screening was going to happen and where we were going to record the podcast, I was in awe. I mean, you have to see it. You really have to go in there and see it for yourself, because I could describe it, with a lot of great words and everything like that, but you have to be there to feel it, because it is like a time capsule. It makes you feel like you're walking into another world, and seeing a movie in that setting really takes it to another level. And that's why these screenings are so special. And that's why I wanted to record, episode 1 inside that theater, because I felt that was such a perfect place to record and a perfect place to talk about movies, because you feel it in every theater seat there, in the walls, in the lights, in the screen. You feel the love for movies oozing out of every hole in the wall. I mean, it is amazing. It's amazing. And when I got there, I set everything up. I record the video part of it, but I just record on the iPhone. I set my iPhone up. I set Claudio's iPhone up. I have a couple of mics that we've been using forever and a little H4 Zoom recorder, and that was it. I brought some lights and everything like that, but I didn't end up having to use them. The theater lighting in there was awesome. And then when Eddie arrived, we got pretty much right to it. We basically set up. He was like, hey, whatever you want to do, I'm down. Because I was like, oh, where do you want to sit and everything? He was totally just like, he's like, I'm here for your vision, so just do it how you would like to do it. And I was like, oh shit, which actually made me a little nervous. I'm like, oh shit, because I'm used to collaborating, but I like the idea of somebody saying, hey, actually, what's your vision for this? I would like to see, and so that really helped a lot. And I was super comfortable during the interview. I rewatched it and I noticed, man, I have this thing where my brain is kind of thinking things, and I have, when I actually say the things that I'm thinking, sometimes the end of the sentence comes out at the beginning and the beginning comes out at the end, and it all comes out kind of, it comes out backwards and forwards, because I feel like I'm a little nervous. And I noticed that I'm in the interview, and Eddie's talking. I maybe have asked him a question, so he's answering the question, and as he's answering the question, my brain is kind of like, oh, what's the next question going to be? I feel myself kind of thinking that when I need to be more present. I need to be more just like ask a question and then really, really listen to his answer. Not have to always try to pre-plan my next question, because sometimes that pre-planning in your head, it can cause anxiety and nervousness, and when you do the delivery of the speech, it comes out all wrong. So I have watched the episode a few times, and I've noticed that I do that a lot. I can see myself being nervous because I remember how I was during that time. So I have this extra little sense of being like, oh, damn, you're pretty nervous there, matey. But my hope is that the more I do of this, the more podcasts that come out, I will get better. And just acknowledging those little things, seeing them, and being like, well, how can I work on that for next time? How can I just be less nervous, and just be like, hey, listen to the person when they're talking and they're giving their answer, and base my next question off their answer. Not everything has to be so pre-planned. I have to allow myself to improvise a little bit, and I have to trust that what I'm going to say is going to be good. Sometimes I have to hear my answer in my head before I say it to make sure, like, hey, are you saying something that's okay? But I just have to trust myself, because why wouldn't I say something that's okay? When have I ever said something that wasn't okay? So it's like, I just got to trust my brain, and I think the more interviews I do, the more I get used to it, the better I'll get. And that's going to be my, my guiding light going forward. So that was an awesome interview. So happy to record at the 10th Avenue Theater with Eddie. It wrapped up in about 45 minutes. We kind of got to all the topics, and then, showtime was going to start. He had to... Basically, there was a representative from the company Severin there, and Severin is this awesome company that restores these films, gives them 4K Blu-ray releases, and all these awesome vintage films that a lot of them I've never heard of before. So it's like I saw a lot of the films they had for sale, and I was like, wow, I've never heard of any of these films, and that was exciting to me. That was exciting. I was like, okay, well, I want this one. All these awesome Blu-rays for sale, so definitely check them out. But they had a booth there at the screening. That's how cool these screenings are. So many people show up. There's basically a lot of seats there for everybody. The screen is huge, and then after the first movie ends, you can kind of walk outside, get some concessions, everything like that. But then there's also a booth there where you can purchase DVDs from this company called Severin, and it was awesome. Awesome. Like I said, these screenings, these Popcorn Reef screenings are like events, and they're only, each time I go, they're adding something new. So it's only getting bigger, and bigger, and so that's very exciting to see something growing in that capacity, growing so exponentially so fast, and that is awesome to see. And I could see why, because when I was in that screening, like I said, after the interview ended with Eddie, started packing up. I kind of went home for maybe an hour, checked back in with the family, and then I came back to the theater, and I showed up right when the screen was starting, right when the film was starting, and it was a packed house. So I had like one seat in front that I can kind of sit in. I kind of got in there. I brought my little popcorn in. I had a Dr. Pepper can. Everybody was munching on stuff, and the movie began. And Eddie puts all these kind of little trailers ahead of it, and all these fun little, like these vintage clips that he curates and he puts in front of the movie, and it just adds to it so much. And you're just like, oh shit, this looks so fucking fun to do. And it's such a cool experience. You feel like, oh shit, I'm in a vintage theater here. These are vintage screenings. These are vintage like film trailers and scenes that I've never seen. And it's like, I could tell that Eddie has a lot of joy in showing these, because it's like, I understand. I'm like, oh my God. Because it feels, as a film fan watching it, you're like, I've never seen this before. This is awesome. And it's fucking inspiring as shit. Like, just to know that there's so much shit out there that you haven't seen. Because sometimes you could feel jaded and be like, oh, I've seen that. I've seen everything. But dude, there is so much shit you haven't seen. So much shit you don't even know about. And it's like, dude, it's happening right there on the screen, and it's fucking awesome. And then right after the trailers came, boom, Dario Argento's opera started playing. And man, was it a feast for the eyes, a feast for the soul. That was fucking incredible. Oh my God, I had never seen opera. I didn't know what I was getting into. Eddie in an interview kind of explained a little bit what giallo was, Italian horror subgenre. So I kind of knew a little bit of what some of the tropes of that genre were, and I saw it in opera when I was watching it. I'm like, oh, okay, there's the masked killer with the leather gloves, and there's the plot. I don't really know what's going on, but I guess that's not really the point, and there was like maybe a surprise ending and all this cool stuff, and I was just blown away the entire time. And yes, I was watching it, I kind of knew what was going on with the plot, but I I can honestly say I didn't understand fully, but I was there watching the whole time, still intensely watching these characters, kind of caring about them, seeing what happened with each of them. And just the visual style of everything and the chances the director took and going right when I thought he would go left and doing things I would never have even thought anybody would approve. Or, usually they'd say, hey, cut that out. What does it have to cut that out of the film? What does it have to do with the main film? But the director left it in there. And the movie became better because of the things he left in, whereas, and I'm like, wow, this is so visually stunning, but also just so inspiring that this was made. Because you sometimes think in order to make a movie, you have to say all these things and make this bigger point about society, and it has to have all the societal value, and it has to be so brilliantly structured and everything like that. You put all these things on it, but you're like, you watch a movie like that breaks all the rules, and then at the end you're still just as satisfied if you would have watched a film that didn't break all the rules and was like a master class in cinema. It's like it feels like on that same level, but made by somebody who was a complete rule breaker. And I fucking love that. I fucking loved watching that movie, and I loved the ending where, like, I guess it was right before the ending, where these ravens, these birds, they're putting on a play called Macbeth, an opera, I guess, Macbeth in the movie, and at the end, in the finale, all these ravens and birds escape their cages and they just attack everyone in the audience. It's a scene that goes on a very long time, and I was literally in my seat just laughing, clapping my hands, jumping up and down. I was like, this is so fucking wild. I fucking loved it. The camera was going everywhere. So the ravens would be flying around, and suddenly the camera would take the POV of the ravens, and the camera would dip down and almost look like it's pecking at the different audience members, and the audience, the opera audience, is going wild. They're all running for the exits and everything, but it feels like a scene out of The Birds, but just way more intense. And I loved how he used the camera and how it just seems so chaotic, but it's just one of those scenes where you're like, this is pure cinema. Like, I don't need to know the context of whatever else is going on, but what they're putting on the screen right now is making me feel something. It's making me excited and happy. Like, oh my God, they are going all the way. They're doing this, and I'm fucking loving it. And that's, to me, is how I felt every time I went to a Popcorn Reef screening. Every time I go there and I watch something there, I leave with that feeling of like, oh my God, like, I can only describe it as I don't even know if the right word, but giddy. I feel kind of like, oh my God, that's fucking awesome. You feel like the director, what you just saw, somebody just got away with something. They made it, they got away with it, they distributed it, and it's like, wow, we get to watch it, because it's like, it wasn't easy getting whatever they made on screen. There was tons of people that probably told them no, or that wouldn't give them financing, or just was so many obstacles. But then that's why you appreciate films like that and directors like that, like Argento, and making that film, because he persisted. For order that film to get made, he had to persist. There had to be many people who had to persist and go along with this vision and believe in this vision, when probably tons of people were telling them, like, what the hell is going on? This makes no sense, blah, blah, blah. All the naysayers. And they did it anyway. And look, years later, it's still being screened for a new audience, and it will live on forever. And damn, that's inspiring. That's why this Movie Manny podcast even exists, because of films like that and experiences like that in the theater. Experiences like that just keep your heart pumping, that make you want to go out there and get your camera and just create something too. And that's what this is about, especially in this crazy year we're about to go through. I want to use this year to connect with people. I don't want to feel like I'm divided from people. I don't want to feel like I can't talk to somebody because of this, that, or the other. I want to feel like I can talk to them because we relate on this subject of movies. And who doesn't love movies? Who doesn't love movies? Or who doesn't at least have a few movies in their back pocket that they really love, or that has inspired them in some way, and that they would like to talk about, that maybe they don't get to talk about enough? That is the purpose and the intent of this podcast. It's got me super hyped up, super hyped up. But without any further ado, we have the great Gabby from Nightmare on Sedgwick Avenue podcast.
It's the Movie Manny podcast.
It looks like we're recording.
Yes.
You know, we started, this is Movie Manny Podcast, episode number 2. So grateful that you're here on the podcast today, Gabby. Like, super grateful, because you definitely are like a top inspiration of why the movie podcast even exists.
Oh, well, thank you.
You know? Yeah, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
so many different things. Like, I recorded in the intro, so you got to listen to that part. But
Okay.
basically, you know, I broke it down and said, you know, like, there's a few people who definitely inspired me to start this podcast, and
Yeah.
you were on the top of the list.
Oh,
And
I appreciate
also, I remember like a specific moment last year, like going to the San Diego Film, what was it, the Consortium?
Yeah, the consortium of the mixer that we went
Exactly,
to. Yeah.
dude. That was such an awesome mixer. That was the first time I had gone out and done something like that in a while, and I was able to even meet Eddie from Popcorn Reef there.
Yes.
you know,
yeah.
so it was
it's
so
cool to see that connection happen too, and like you guys have that episode. And it's
yeah,
pretty dope.
dude.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's a super cool person.
He
So
is.
I just wanted to start off the episode by saying thank you for that, and just kind of setting the context of like, this podcast wouldn't even exist if that didn't happen. So
Oh, thank
super.
you. I
that-
appreciate that a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
That means a lot. Yeah, and I also like, it's kind of like a full circle moment. I don't know if you think about that, because
Yeah.
I just remember too having you on the podcast last season on Nightmare,
Yes.
and we were talking about pretty much this, like, oh, because I think you were actually giving me advice. I don't know if it was on the actual episode or before we recorded, but you were like, oh yeah, because I was like, I'm trying to level up, I'm trying to change the way
Yeah.
I do my podcast, and you're like, oh yeah, you should do like movie reviews or something. Remember?
Yeah,
You talked?
yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, oh yeah, and I'm still thinking of probably doing like a little segment, and you inspired that too as well.
100%. 100%.
But then you talking about you too, like starting something, and it's cool because now like we see it coming to fruition, which is the Movie Manny podcast.
Yeah, and then I totally forgot to mention that I was I was a guest on the Nightmare on Sedgwick Avenue podcast in like
Yes.
August or September or something
Yes,
like
so
that.
something
And
around there, yeah.
that was another moment where it was like, you got me basically talking about movies, and
Yeah.
like we were just deep diving on some stuff and everything like that. And I was so nervous leading up to that, because you're just like, you know, I loved movies, but I've never talked about movies like publicly on a podcast before.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like, you're always, before that happens, you question your knowledge a little bit. You're like,
Yeah.
am I even worthy to do this or anything like that? But then sometimes when you go out there and you do it, and it's like such an awesome experience,
Yeah.
you start being like, oh shit, like why did I even question myself, or I should do that more? I love doing that. And it's
Yep.
not like even something people should like question in their
Question.
mind. Yeah.
No, I get you. Yeah, because even I've been doing it for like 4 years now. I think 2019 since 2019. Yeah, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, like 5 years. And it's crazy because I think about like still to this day I still get nervous. Like
Yeah.
even doing this right now, like I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah.
But it's like the fact that we were talking about, like we don't let that stop us from doing
Exactly.
what we want to do. And even like yesterday, I was just telling you off screen. I went to the dinner reunion at the Oceanside, the Star Theater,
Nice.
and shout out to Beth Acamando. She and Sterling, shout out to him as well. He's the one that he's part of like the Oceanside like, International Film Fest.
Yeah.
And she asked him, like, hey, can we get like Gabby to interview someone real quick if we can?
Hell yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, anybody, like I'm not really prepared, but like I'm down to do it, right? And so
Yeah.
last minute we saw one of the special makeup effects guy just roaming around before the movie started, and I was like, let me just go up to him real quick. And he was really nice. He like let me ask him like one question, and we kind of got interrupted because then the cast came in, and then we got the footage and everything. And when as I was recording, because I had Beth like hold the camera for me while I
Yeah.
did the question, I was still nervous, and I felt like I butchered it because I was like, I felt like you said, like I felt like, am I
Yeah.
knowledgeable? Am
I
I
know.
Do I
know.
feel like am I? And especially being a woman too, that's another thing. Like sometimes I forget that part until
Yeah.
like after, and a person of color too. So I was like, are they gonna take me seriously too?
100%. 100%.
And I was like, and so I rewatched the footage, and I was like, damn, I was harder on myself when I saw it. I was like, it wasn't even that bad.
I know.
Right?
It's like you overthink it in your head and you make it out, but then when you see it, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, you did that.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
doesn't it make you want to do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the feeling like beforehand, like that uncomfortable. I think like
Yes.
they say, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And that's so true.
Yeah. No,
Because
100%.
it's like outside of my comfort zone, but I was like, I still did it. And even if I butchered it, you learned something. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah.
And I used to like, that nervousness would come and I'd like, my mind would figure out a way to like run the other way.
Yeah.
But now it's like, that nervousness never goes away. But I feel like, especially even before this interview, like a couple days before, I'm just like, oh my God, what am I going to say? And I try to pre-plan everything. You could
Yeah.
feel like those nerves racking up
Yeah.
again. But then I don't know. It's like over time, I think the more you do it, you just learn how to quiet them down a little bit, or be like, "Hey, stop
Yeah.
tripping," you know, like
Yeah.
just stop tripping. Like you've done it before and it turned out great. So
Exactly, yeah. It's like exposure therapy, like that's what I call it.
yeah,
Because like I was talking, because I started therapy too, and I was like, yeah, like I still get nervous. Like I do all these things, and
Yeah.
people might think like I'm not shy, but like I'm like shy by nature.
oh my god,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
but it's like the more I do it, like you said, like then the outcome you realize nothing bad happened, like you survived. So it's
Yeah.
like, so then you kind of just keep doing it, and it's just building it, like
So-
keep doing
but
it.
that's inspiring because you're saying that you're shy, right?
Yeah.
Is that so? But you more than anyone like are able to go up to people that you don't know and just talk to them.
Yeah.
So
I know.
how are you shy and be able to do that?
Well, I'm like freaking like even yesterday, like because I haven't done, and that's the thing with me. Like I feel like if I don't practice like being social,
Yeah.
like I get socially awkward again. So like lately,
Yeah.
I think I mentioned to you I have like a new puppy. Her name's Storm, and I've been like here at the house. Me and Melly, we've been like pretty much co-parenting, and so I haven't gone out really. And I feel like when I don't exercise those social skills, I get introverted again.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so when I was going to the dinner thing, I was like, man, like, because then Beth was like, oh, do you want to interview someone? I think I can ask Sterling. And I was like, I didn't want to say no.
I know,
'Cause-
yeah, yeah,
So I was
yeah.
like, sure. Like, I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
but then I started like overthinking it too. Like, as an anxious person, I started writing questions like, okay, let me write some just in case.
and you maybe
right?
never even use those questions.
Yeah, and I didn't because I didn't even have my phone. Like, she
I
was
know.
holding it, right? And so I was like, okay, so I need to at least somewhat be prepared.
Yeah.
And then when I got there, I was kind of shy, but I didn't want to like show it in front of like Beth because
Yeah.
I look up to her too. She's like KPBS, like arts and culture, and I'm like,
100%.
man. I can't show like I'm shy, so I was like, damn, I have to go up to this guy. So I literally just went up to him and introduced myself, but I was like super like shaky.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I'm Gabby. You know, I'm from Nightmare on Central Gabby. And like, I have a hip hop and horror podcast. Do you mind if I ask you like some quick questions?
Yeah, yeah.
And he was like, sure. And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, like, cause I was like, I told Beth, I'm like, if he says no, at least I asked.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
he might be busy or whatever. But
100%.
he was really nice. I asked him like literally like 1.5 questions, I think. And then, because then the cast came in, and it was kind of cool because like we literally got like Tom Holland,
Oh,
Robert John
shit.
Burke, like everybody's in the footage. Like you'll see it on Instagram
Oh,
that I
fuck
just posted.
yeah.
But I was like one of those things where like I don't know, like I'm shy, but like we talk about like fear. Like
Yeah.
I feel there's this quote too where it's in a like a rap song where it's like a motivational speaker. I don't know who says it, but he's like, find a way to like not let like fear like push you to not do it, like use it as a force to actually push you to do it.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we've been doing.
100%. Because
Yeah.
for a while there, I thought that just the people that were doing it just had no fear. But then I think I just realized that no, they had those same fears.
Yeah.
It's just they figured out a way to push through it.
Exactly.
You know, so it's like, oh shit. So everyone is experiencing this nervousness. Everyone's
Yeah.
experiencing this anxiousness. But it's like, okay.
It's like, but do you let it deter you, right?
Exactly.
Because and that's what I talk about. Because I was watching a podcast because I be watching a lot of podcasts about anxiety, just because I never knew a name for it.
Yeah.
I just knew I was anxious, but because I've been this like that all my life, and I was like, is there such thing as like not having it? Like I'm sure that everybody has anxiety, because if not, people wouldn't be able to do certain things.
Exactly.
And worry about certain things to meet deadlines. But there's a time where like, for me as an anxious person, when I say that I'm anxious, is that like it's unmanageable, where it's like it takes over. And I don't know if it's the same for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for me, like it's always been like that, and I've always been like on high alert. And so I was like, I want to do more research about it. Like even before I started therapy, and I watched this podcast where they were talking about the first time they defined anxiety, like in a way that I understood it, and like how I felt.
Uh-huh.
And they said that like a lot of successful people are highly like, they said, highly, what's it called? When they say like you're an alcoholic, but you can still do your stuff.
Oh,
Like,
functioning.
So
Oh, shit.
high functioning anxious person.
Ah.
And I was like, I've never heard it that way, but like now I consider that myself. That's like I'm a high functioning anxious
Yeah,
person,
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I can do all these things and I still like get nervous, but you don't let it hinder you. Because my therapist was like, I know people that have anxiety, but they're the opposite of you. They're like they don't go out. I was like, oh man, like I'm glad I don't have it to that extent. Like it's still I get like really bad like nausea for me. But I still, like you said, it doesn't scare me. I still just do it.
You just do it.
Yeah.
Right? You just push
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
But how does that, because that fear, anxiety, and all that, how does that play into your love for horror?
Yeah, actually, yeah, good thing that you bring that up. I think for me, it's like a comfort thing.
Ah.
I think for me, like besides like the anxiety, I think also like I always allude to this, obviously mainly the slashers.
Yeah.
Is like the fact that women have always been the heroic heroes, or like the main heroic protagonist in a horror film.
Yes.
And so for me, I was like, I always thought that was badass. I'm like, you see like action films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's not like like these where we have that trope of the final girl, all right? So I was like, I always thought, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like the women are the badass ones and like killing the bad guy. And then also like taking it back to the anxious part. Like for me, it was like always been my safe space, I think.
Uh-huh.
Because I remember since I was a kid, we would go to the theater. And then also like back in my day, it would be like the VHS era, you know, where it was like Blockbuster Hollywood Video. So like every Friday, like my parents we would go and rent a movie.
Oh, fuck yes.
And it was either like the new release, you know, the new release wall,
yes.
or just you get to pick whatever. And what I liked, like I think my parents, I mean, I didn't turn out bad. Luckily, I always tell them, I joke around because they're like, "Why do you like horror?" I'm like, "What's your fault? Like you guys like would let me watch anything."
Yeah.
But like that's the thing, I am blessed that they weren't like parental advisory. I mean, maybe they should have, but I watched these that I probably should have been watching. Like I watched like Child's Play like at 7, 8 years old or something. Watching all these slashers, at like young age, but it kind of like made me love it too. And my grandma was another. I mentioned her a lot. Like she was another reason why I fell in love with the horror genre, because we would watch like Mexican horror films.
Oh hell yeah!
Like the 80s.
Yeah,
because 80s also had like. I always say that Mexican horror film is like underrated.
Yeah.
And doesn't get the recognition it deserves, but it also had its slasher era because they kind of copied the American films, or vice versa. They probably copied each other, but they had their own little era too.
And I saw that on just another person that you kind of showed me online, the seen it on 16 millimeter.
Yes.
He has a lot of Mexican horror films, right? Playing that I've never even seen.
Yeah, him and shout out to Trashmax too, Armando.
Trashmax. Yes. Okay, hell yeah. See, I mean, is anything like that coming to San Diego soon?
Yeah, I won't say too much because I'm like not at liberty to say it. It's not me, but I heard there's rumors that hopefully they're trying to get Trashmax to come out here.
Fuck yes.
To do more things, but I hope because I think he's like really dope too. He's doing a lot of like not even just horror, but he's doing a lot of like the obscure Mexican films. He puts me onto stuff that I've never even heard of.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's a whole treasure trove of films out there that basically haven't even explored yet. Yeah. So that to me is just like. Makes me super hyped up.
Yeah, and he's doing his thing like up in Orange County. And I think he's right now. He might go. I think he announced he's going on tour like in Texas or something. I'm like, I might just have to go road trip out there because I've been wanting to go to Texas.
That'd be a perfect excuse to. Fuck yeah. But getting back to like the film rentals and everything like that. So you used to get movies at like Blockbuster.
Yeah, like Blockbuster was my favorite. Honestly, like I was like, I don't know what the debate is, like Hollywood Video, whatever.
Blockbuster, but Blockbuster was on every block. Like there was a lot of Blockbusters in my town growing up.
Yeah, and I even watched like the sorry, like going off a tangent, but I watched the last Blockbuster on Netflix. Like I recommend it. It's freaking hilarious. But yeah, I used to go there all the time. Like usually like I remember Fridays, like it was always like after we got out of school, or when my parents got home from work, we're like, let's go to rent a movie.
Yeah.
And so like I think that was always my like it was like I know people say like, oh, you use movies as an escape. I'm like, yeah, to an extent I guess, but I mean who doesn't go through like bad shit when they're kids, like like their childhood trauma, whatever it might be. For me I think it provided like an outlet,
similar to music.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So music and movies have always been like the outlet. So I just remember like that was my safe space, either watching a movie at home or going to the theater. Like that was, and I think that was one of the times where I think I remember my parents not arguing. So maybe that's why I was like, yeah.
But walking into like the Blockbuster and everything like that, because you have that unique experience that I think a lot of people, maybe even listening to this, might not even have any reference point to, is when you walk in and you see all like the boxes on the new release section. But then if there wasn't like a box behind it, like if there wasn't like I would
your
just
dreams
go,
were shattered.
Yeah, exactly, because you're like, oh shit, you get to see all the titles, but they're all sold out.
And even
like,
the mom and pop, I have to shout out also the mom and pop shops. We went into a couple one. There was some in like you're from San Diego and you're watching this. There was some in I think it was like South Park. There was one, and I remember that like. I feel kind of bad for the people that didn't live this era because it was like beautiful artwork too, like the Mexican. Yes. I remember the VHS to the Mexican films, like, and that's why I shout out to Trashmax again, because he collects a lot of these VHS, and I remember the artwork was so cool.
Fuck yeah.
Like it was just like really, like it was a collectible now probably, but I was like, man, like I remember seeing those, and just in general, like all the movie covers, like the VHSs from American, whatever films they were, like if they were foreign. It's just like the presentation, like just being there, like actually physically getting it. It's not the same as streaming. It's just nobody can like describe that feeling unless you were there.
Yeah, because streaming too, you see the titles, they have the posters, but it even seems like now they first of all don't put as much time or effort into like the creation of the poster, but it did feel different walking through those different aisles and sometimes experiencing those movies for the first time just based on that cover art.
Yeah, because I know they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I was like one of those people where like if the cover looked cool, I was like, I want to see that because I remember.
Yes, but then it led you to like, okay, the cover looks cool. I'm gonna flip this around. Like some of them, like the cover
Yeah.
had to be cool for me to flip it to the back
That's
and
true.
read that
And
little
read-
description.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
But usually it was the cover art that sold me on it in the
And
beginning.
it's funny because now that you think we're talking about that, like I remember one time I think I might have gone with my dad and my mom wasn't there. I can't remember. And that's the funny part that they let me choose shit. That I was
Yeah.
like, I'm a fucking like 10-year-old or 8-year-old. I don't remember how old I was, but I'm like, I'm choosing these films, and it's like, are you guys like realizing like what I would have watched? Like, so I remember like I picked Evil Dead, Army of Darkness.
Oh fuck
Because
yes.
I thought it was like a dope ass
Yeah,
cover.
he's like
Yeah, and I told my dad, I think I was like, can we grab it? She's like, yeah. And so we played at the house. And they're like, what the fuck is this? But I was like, so like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Hell
Like,
yeah. And did they watch it with you?
Yeah, they would watch it sometimes. Or sometimes it was funny, like they would kill the vibe because they're like, oh yeah, we're watching it. I remember From Dusk Till Dawn. Like I never watched it as a kid, like the full thing to the extent because obviously there's that bar scene.
Yeah.
And so I remember like my parents were like, oh, you guys got to go to the room. And I was like, what? I was like, I want to see it with you guys. And I remember I like pretended I had to go to the kitchen. And I literally walked into the middle of that scene, the bar scene, where like all the women are all naked and shit. And my parents like, don't look.
It's
but
so
I was like,
funny.
But I want to see it. Like it made me want to see it even more.
Because my parents were the same way. Like I could see anything, heads exploding, all this stuff, but there was a little bit of nudity in there. You got to go to the room, close your eyes, cover your ears. And I was like, I always felt like that was just a little bit of like backwards.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, wait
it's
a
like
second.
It's contradicting. Like, do you want me to watch it or not?
Yeah, exactly. You're cool with the vampires because Dusk Till Dawn is a pretty gory.
Yeah.
But I love that film.
Yeah,
I love that film. But so we talked about like the renting of the movies and everything like that. But what was your first experience in the movie theater?
I don't remember. I was trying to like remember like when was like one of the biggest movies. I'm trying to think at the top of my head. Like Jurassic Park comes to mind.
Yeah.
I don't know how old I was. I was in 96.
94?
94? Okay, yeah. So I was like 6, 7, because I'm from '89. So
Okay.
I was like, I was young.
Dang.
But I don't know if I went to see it like exactly when it dropped. But I remember I went to see that one. There's like movies that I would watch all the time, but I can't remember like exactly like my first movie experience. But I would always go because I was a kid. So I was a kid even into like now adulthood. But like it was a teenager too, we would just get dropped off and like,
at the theater, right?
And go with our friends and like go to the movies. Like one of my favorite and like most memorable experiences was when the Grudge came out, the American version.
Yes.
And I think it is the Grudge, with the one where they call the number and like it just rings or something.
Oh, maybe yes, or is it The Ring?
The Ring. It might have been The Ring.
Naomi
One of
Watts.
those two.
Yes.
Because we were like, it was when the payphones were still in the theaters.
Yeah.
And we were like, the payphones used to be right by the restrooms.
Uh-huh.
So it was at the AMC theater in Mission Valley because that's the one we would go to all the time.
Nice.
And we were already leaving the theater, and we had just finished watching the movie, and the freaking telephone rings, and we all fucking jump.
That's how you know it's a good movie.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh shit, but it was just fun because I was like, oh wow, like I didn't even think that we were like that traumatized after like leaving the theater. Because now I watch it, I'm like, that shit wasn't scary, but it's just like when you go and watch it with friends, and it's just like a fun. It takes it to
a different level.
Yeah,
and that's what's so exciting about these film screenings. Like it seems like popping up in San Diego. Just there's one every week. There's multiple venues. Yeah, so it's like. I thought for a while, I was like, during the pandemic times, I'm like, none of these movies are coming out. The movie theaters look like ghost towns. Like, I was ready to do like RIP on theaters. Like, I thought it was over. And then big movies will come to streaming right away. So I'm like, everybody got comfortable with just like, let's get some snacks from the convenience store and just kind of meet at the house and like, let's just watch tonight. Which is actually great that can happen.
Yeah.
But I was really like, what is justifying the existence of like, movie theaters?
I thought the same thing too. I was scared because me and you, we love like the movie theater. Like I know you talk about it, that you love going out there, and I like the same thing. Like, and I know you talk about like you going by yourself sometimes. Yeah. Even in a crowded room, it's still like you don't feel alone, right?
Exactly.
And like the first time I ever went to the theater alone, because I would always go with someone, like either like a group of friends or my parents or my siblings. But then I was like, man, like I should try going solo, but because I was always like that thing, like especially I think maybe as a woman, you're like, man, if I go alone, it's kind of weird. Like for a guy, I feel like it's okay, maybe a little bit, maybe it's like a different thing.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of forced to because on my other job that I used to do, like they would send me sometimes up to like Sacramento, and I was like, man, what am I gonna do on the weekend? Like I should just go to the movie theater. I was like, that was the first time I decided to go by myself. And I was like, oh, this is nice. Because I was like, nobody's fucking asking me what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or like,
like,
interrupting like the moment. Like, because I zone out when I'm
big time.
I was like, oh, this is nice. So then ever since that, I was like, oh, I can do this more often. So sometimes if people don't want to go with me, I just go by myself.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
And it's like, I know people that might be there too, but it's cool because it's like, it's like a solo experience, but it's also like a community experience.
At
like
the
it's
same
kinda
time.
weird. Yeah, right.
Exactly. And I freaking the food too is another thing. When I
Yes.
go by myself, nobody's like eating my popcorn. I get a large popcorn. This is what I literally get from the AMC when I go. I get a large popcorn
Yeah.
and then I get a large like slushie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it makes me feel like literally like when I'm in that theater by myself, drinking my slushie, eating my popcorn. I feel fucking 11 years old.
Yeah. It does.
I feel like
yeah.
a kid.
It brings you
I'm like, I
back.
used to do the same thing in the theater, and I get in that like, and especially if it's a good movie. Like just recently, I just stumbled upon the Godzilla -1.
Oh my god, that movie's so amazing.
Right, I just
Yeah.
stumbled upon it. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I read one good review, and I was like, but I don't know anything about the Godzilla mythology or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've seen maybe a couple films, but you walk in there, and you're just like, holy shit! Like right from the beginning, because I don't want to give any spoilers
Yeah.
away, but you see Godzilla. It feels like right away. Like they don't
Yeah.
hide it, they don't wait, and it's like he's
Yeah.
eating people, and there's so much action right away. And then it goes into this beautiful story.
Yeah, and I know it was a little bit of everything. That's what I loved about it. It was like the most fierce, at least because I haven't watched like the older ones.
Yeah.
And actually, now that you bring up Godzilla, I'll like plug in Cinebest Film Geeks. They're doing like a Godzilla 70th anniversary, so they're doing
yes.
like all the Godzilla, like the show era Godzilla movies every
Oh,
month.
I gotta check
And
that
so
out.
yeah, you gotta check it out, the Digital Gym. But I just went to see. They had a double feature. I think it was like last week, and I've never like I would watch them in the sci-fi like as background noise.
Yeah.
I never really like paid attention.
Yeah.
I've only watched like the newer ones, like the 1999 to like the recent ones.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, when Godzilla -1 came out, I was like, oh, I gotta check this one out, because it's like back to the Japanese,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, okay, I gotta check this out, and it was really dope. And like you said, like this, like it's the most fiercest like Godzilla I've seen. Like his eyes were
Oh
so
my
like crazy, like,
terrifying.
terrifying, right?
Terrifying.
And like they said, like this, but then the story was like super like inspirational
Oh my
too, and like
God.
heartfelt, and
And you felt like, because this was a pilot that was supposed to be a kamikaze, but at the last second he backed out. So
Talking
he
about
feels,
fear,
yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So he's like overcoming that throughout the whole thing. So you're not as only is he defeating Godzilla, but he's like reaching for this higher purpose for himself. And you're like,
like
oh
redemption
my,
too.
yes,
because he like
yes.
kind of fucked up. Like if he hadn't like hesitated, like all these people wouldn't have died. I mean,
Exactly,
I'm sorry if I'm spoiling it, but I'm sorry. But
no, 100%. And that was at the very beginning of the
Yeah,
movie, kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And that's I love how it just shot you in there, because I've seen other Godzillas in the past or other monster movies where they really try to like for the whole like first half of the movie they just like show you little peeks of it, or they build up this little anticipation. They don't want to show the whole monster. And it's like this right from the get-go, first 5 minutes you see the full monster and you're like, I know why they're showing it off, because he's terrifying.
yeah.
Terrifying.
And they did a great job of like balancing the story and Godzilla being like the monster, because I feel like sometimes they'll focus more on the monster side and they'll forget
Yeah.
about the storyline, and then like it just suffers.
100%.
But
And
they did a good job, at least in my opinion. I liked it.
especially
Yeah.
setting it like right like after the like post-war bomb had just dropped there, so it's like Godzilla is like this manifestation of all these fears and
Yeah.
paranoia that's happening, so it was just really fucking, when I walked out of there I was like, damn, like
I know. I honestly like got like emotional. Like
Yeah,
like,
no,
it was
seriously.
like it was a tearjerker for sure. I was
was,
like
yeah.
I was like I don't know, maybe I'm getting older too, because I feel like some horror movies now like make me cry. But I was like,
it
it's
has
like,
a great ending. I won't
Yeah.
spoil it, but it has a great ending too.
Oh, and talking about that, they just announced they're gonna release the black and white version
Of
on the big
Godzilla?
screen, the
Oh,
-1.
shit.
So I probably have to check it out.
Hell yeah,
I know
hell
it's like people don't really care, but I'm like, I think it's cool. Like I want to go see it.
And that's not even a film like leading up to it where I was like, oh, I'm anticipating this film. Like I had not even heard about it. I was just like off on a weekend. I was like, I gotta see a movie, and I walked into it, and then it happened to be like that was like top 5 movies that year. I was like,
that
oh
was a good
shit,
top
like
five
that
for
was
me
up
too.
there.
Yeah.
But is there any movies going into this year that you're like, oh shit, I got my radar on, I'm gonna see that?
I haven't looked out too much. I know there's a bunch of remakes, which is like,
I know.
I'm like in like if I kind of like remakes, but then at the same time, like I want to see original shit too.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
but I think which was the one that was coming out? It might be was it a remake? Oh no, it's a sequel. I think like Beetlejuice 2, which. Unpopular opinion, I've never been a fan of the first one.
Wow.
I might get canceled for saying that.
Oh shit, Tim
But-
Burton, you heard that?
Yeah, right. But I don't know. Maybe just like the scene that I freaking hated was the scene where they're freaking singing that one song, like the one that Pitbull remade.
Oh,
I forgot this freaking song, the Senora song.
Banana.
Yes.
Yeah.
I freaking hated that scene. So maybe
Oh.
that, like, and I'm not a fan of musicals, so
Yeah.
maybe like that shit like ruined it for me.
Oh,
and I kind of
shit.
want to rewatch it again, because I was like, okay, let me rewatch
Yeah.
it again. Maybe it's been a long time since I watched it. But I'm excited because Winona Ryder's coming back, like, and Jenna Ortega, like, I feel like she's one of my favorites, like newer actresses.
And is it going to be directed by Tim Burton?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
he's
shit.
he's
So-
also redoing it too. So It should be cool. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. So I'm like, I know it's kind of like contradicting. Like I said, I don't like the first one, but I'm kind of excited to see like what they bring to the table.
And is it going to be a different Beetlejuice or Michael Keaton?
I don't know if Michael Keaton is coming back. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting to see what the storyline is even.
Yeah, I think it's like Jenna Ortega plays the daughter of Winona Ryder's character.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
I think, and they kind of look alike a little bit.
Yeah. And she killed it in Wednesday, which was a previous Tim Burton thing, so it makes sense that. Dude, so that's, I mean, I didn't even know that was coming out. So it's like, okay, Beetlejuice too. But that is kind of it's like that was a 90s movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're making a sequel because we are familiar with it. But what if they just made a movie that was a original Tim Burton kind of monster movie and it didn't have anything to do with Beetlejuice, but I think it's too risky. For these days. And that's why they just keep going back to this Beetlejuice too, because they're like, oh, well, immediately when you said Beetlejuice, I clicked to my nostalgia from that. And I was like, oh, I remember liking that movie. I know. But it's like, you're right, going back to your originality thing. I wish there was a little bit more risk-taking with, hey, what's Tim Burton's new monster plot thing?
Yeah, because I mean, again, like talking about like its remakes, like the one I'm excited to, and I don't know if it's coming out this year, is Guillermo del Toro. I'm a huge Guillermo del Toro fan. Yeah. He's doing Frankenstein, and he's a huge Frankenstein fan.
Wow.
And so they announced that last year, but I don't know if it drops this year. I don't even know if it's even filmed yet. So they've announced some of the cast already, but I was like, I'm excited to see his rendition because
Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Oh,
because
hell yeah.
I went to like what's it called? At Home with the Monsters or something. It was like a museum exhibit of all his stuff of Guillermo del Toro up in LA like a few years back, and he has like literally like a life-size like Frankenstein. Like it's all the stuff that he has at his home. He let the museum borrow it. And I was like, and you could tell he loves like the story of Frankenstein. So I'm like, I want to see his version because he's gonna do it with like love.
Yeah, no,
not just
100%.
for like the money. I'm hoping, and so I want to see that. And yeah, it was really cool though to see because he has like the Bleak House is what his place is called. Like I don't know if you heard about it, but he has like a rain room. And I was like, if I ever get like a big house, like I always wanted to have a rain room because he has it like it sounds like it's raining in there. That's where he gets his inspiration.
And this is actually his house. Like
his
he
house.
lives in it.
Yeah, I think it's like in Pennsylvania or somewhere other. I might be butchering it, but somewhere around there.
But he loves monster films, right?
Yeah.
I remember he was influenced by Hitchcock, so he has all that.
Yeah, and I think he also credits his grandma. That's why I think I have like a lot of connection to him because when I went to the museum, he had like little excerpts of like what he loves, like horror and all these different like anecdotes.
Yeah.
And he mentioned his grandma too was like a big role in like why he fell in love with like monsters and stuff like that.
Yeah. And he's doing the ultimate monster movie, Frankenstein.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see that one. I forgot about that one. I know there's a list, but I'm not like I can't think of them.
No, 100%.
Right off the top of my head right now.
The only thing I could think of, it's not a horror film, but it's Furiosa. So.
Yes, that's a good one. I love the Mad Max.
Oh my God, that movie like to me was like the best movie of the 2010s, like of that decade. Like I go back to that movie over and over again, and it feels like an adrenaline shot, like from beginning to end. Like you cannot. It's one of those movies you can't turn off.
Yeah.
And I'm
like
just
the cinematography is so beautiful too. Like I don't know, like the color, everything. Like, and I'm kind of bummed that like Charlize. I know it's like that was a long time ago, so there's no way she could do because it's a younger Furiosa. And obviously, like Anya Taylor is the one who's doing it. Like, I'm a huge fan of her. Anyways, I couldn't picture her just because she's so thin.
What has she done in the past?
She's done. Oh my God, it like blew up during the pandemic. It's like a chess one. I forgot the chess.
Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit.
Oh, I fucking love
that.
Yeah,
I think she's Argentinian, so I think she speaks Spanish too. But she's really dope too.
She's
like
Furiosa?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and she came out in Last Night in Soho, I think.
Okay.
Right? I think, yeah, she was like the actress or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's a really dope actress. So I'm like, okay, like I'll give her the benefit of the doubt because she's a great actress. I couldn't picture her in like an action film like that.
And she's gonna full shave head.
I don't know.
That would be awesome.
I mean, it could.
Fuck
I think in the trailer she might have long hair. I can't remember, or maybe she might have short hair. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't remember. I saw it like briefly, like a couple weeks ago.
But that's definitely because I mean they could have made a sequel to that right away, but they've waited a while, and it's like because they put in time to it. You could tell when you're watching Mad Max Fury Road, you're like, oh my God, how many people had to get their shit right to get this shot right? You know, like it's so fucking epic.
Yeah.
You know, but with other movies coming up, you know, is there any horror specific reboot or genre? Because I know Halloween just went through their whole thing, right?
Yeah.
They went through like 1, 2, 3. And I heard almost like they're gonna be rebooted again.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, so does it ever?
Well, even like with talking about Scream too. Like I'm a huge Scream fan.
Yeah.
And like right now, it's like so sad what's going on with Scream 7. Where like I don't know if you heard, but like Melissa Barrera, which was one of the main characters who played. Oh my God, I'm blanking out her name. Sam.
Yeah.
She got like pretty much fired because she was involved in the whole conversation of the Palestinians and the Israelis. And she was using her voice as her platform, and I guess That's the rumor that they said that's why they fired her, because she was speaking out on that and they didn't agree. The studio supposedly,
Damn.
and then Jenna Ortega, out of like having her back, she's like, I'm dropping out too.
Oh
And
shit.
so, and then now they're asking like Neve. They've been asking Neve and like or Nev and some of the interviews that she's done, I think red carpet for other things. They're like, oh, would you come back? 'Cause like with everything that's going on, she's like, well, if the right circumstances. But I'm pretty sure she's talking about money. 'Cause
Yeah,
she needs.
yeah,
I mean, she deserves it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
she even
yeah.
said it. She's like, I've held like this franchise, like this series. I'm like, yeah, she's fucking held it down. Like, and like, you didn't want to pay her. Like, come on, people.
And that's why this
But-
is all happening now too. It seems
Yeah.
like it's a troubled thing,
Yeah,
right? The
it's-
seven.
And they even fired the director now, I think.
Oh my god!
Right.
And you
It's-
can't bring Wes Craven back.
Yeah,
So it's
I
like
know.
fuck.
And I was like, man, Wes Craven would be like fucking pissed right now.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
And then the core four, like the other two, like Jasmine Savoy, and I forgot the other guy. It's Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son. The other two, like the core four, like they're like saying that they haven't heard back either. Like if they're even gonna, because they were like, oh, what if they hold it down?
Yeah.
But they're like, I haven't heard anything from the studio. I think they interviewed the girl, and she was like, the only thing I'm proud of is that they're finally like is people of color. We can always see that there was a people of color and women as the protagonist in a horror movie, and I
Hell
was like,
yeah.
that was the beauty of it, like 6 and 7. For
Yeah,
me.
of those exactly.
Yeah, because it was like a
exactly.
franchise that I love, and I was like, oh, to see like two brown girls like freaking being, and like the black girl too with her brother
Hell
and
yeah.
stuff like that. And I was like, all the representation. I was like, this is dope
100%.
to see like the evolution of.
And
Scream.
that is cool to see, like a franchise have that many 6, 7, 8, if they are evolving over time. Like they're
Yeah.
justifying these sequels. Like, oh, this is Scream, but it's like this is a modern Scream, so it's like we're evolving, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes some of the Jasons or others, like Part 7 was. You know, it wasn't much different than Part 2, but it's like I still, you know, we still
Yeah.
love them, still have a place in the
Yeah.
heart for them. But it's like I know, you know, horror. It's like it could be so much. It
More.
could be so much more.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the higher. Every time you go see, you like, see somebody do it right sometimes and everything like that. But
Yeah, it gives you hope. You're like, oh man, like the original stuff, like is really dope. Like,
yeah,
and sorry to interrupt you, but like,
Yeah.
because I wanted to say like, talking about like original films. Like, we'll talk about Friday the 13th because I
Mm-hmm.
think that one's getting. I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan, even though they're not the best films, but
Yeah.
it's like one of the first horror films I watched too. So as a kid, but on the original side, I feel like I have to shout out like the Argentinian people because
Yeah.
they're like killing it. Like them and the Korean people that I've seen like films, like horror films, like they've been killing it. Like in
Hell
my
yeah.
opinion, like last year, like my number one favorite film was When Evil Lurks, which is Cuando acecha la maldad is how you say it, I think in Spanish, which was an Argentinian horror director, and like what I've seen is he had another film too that came out in 2017, I think, or something. It's called Terrified.
okay,
And like, nothing really scares me, but that shit like left me unsettled. And I remember, and I was like, when he said that he was announcing like a new film, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be dope. But like, his things like leave me like unsettled afterwards. Like I wouldn't say scared, but I'm like, damn, like I am actually like kind of like terrified after it, or like it lingers in my mind. And that film was really dope. Like
When Evil Lurks.
When Evil Lurks.
Oh,
So if
shit.
you haven't seen it, check it out.
And
Like,
what's the plot?
so it's pretty much like I won't give it too much away, but it's like a demonic possession type of thing. Like it gave me like vibes of like modern Evil Dead, but with like a different twist. Like
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
it's like a guy, and he has like, I guess he's like estranged from his family.
Okay.
But it all happens like in this small little town, like a rural type of town, and there's just like they come up with these rules. But that's what I'm talking about, like originality, because he even comes with his own like mythology, like the director of like what not to do if there's a demon type of
Setting
thing.
the rules.
Yeah, and there's like 7 rules.
Oh,
And,
okay,
you know,
okay.
number 7 is my favorite. So it's like 7 rules of like what you not to do if you're possessed by a demon. And I'll just leave it at that because it's,
Okay,
like,
okay.
it's a really dope film. Yeah.
Hell yeah. And we can find it online and shit like that?
Yeah, I think it's now on streaming finally. Yeah,
hell
yeah,
yeah,
they released
hell
it.
yeah.
And I think you have to like obviously like pay for it, but I think it's worth it. Like if you rent it, because another thing too is like he's not afraid to cross the boundaries. I'll leave it at that. Like
Yeah.
he's not afraid to like hurt certain characters.
And what is his name? Just to give him a shout out again. What is the
I
director's
think
name?
it's Demian Rugna. I think
Okay.
is the director, and I'm
Hell
trying to
yeah.
get him on the podcast.
Oh
I'm trying
my
to
God.
manifest it. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, because
Hell
I went to the premiere at Beyond Fest. That's where I watched it, and I was like, oh my God, it's dope. And they had a Q&A. He was there, and like right after, again talking about being shy, like I was like, I need to go up to him. Just like I
Yeah.
brought some stickers, and I kind of introduced myself like really briefly, but everybody was trying to talk to him.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if he even remembers me, but I at least gave him a sticker.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm still like waiting because I'm taking a break from my podcast. But
Uh-huh.
I was like, I'm gonna DM him and like be like, hey, I was the one that met you. Like, I don't know if you remember me, but
And speaking of Beyond Fest, what is that festival?
I just heard about it. Actually, shout out to Popcorn Reef, like Eddie. He's the one that put me onto it. He's like, yeah, they do it every think every year too, and it's around, when did I go? I think, was it October? I think it might have been October. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, they do different films, and we were supposed to go actually to see a film, but it didn't work out, and he was like, yeah, just check out to see what's on there.
Yeah.
And I had been following this one, When Evil Lurks, because I like always try to like go down the rabbit hole on the indie circuit.
Yeah.
And I've been following like the Argentinian horror for a while just because I really love what they're doing. And so when I saw, I was like, it's going to be playing, I was like, oh shit, like I got to go.
Yeah.
So I went, like, shout out to Beth again. Me and her went, and we went up there and we went to go see it. And it was a Q&A too. And I was like, because they do Q&As too.
Yeah.
So they'll have like the film, and then they'll have a Q&A of like either the cast or the director, whoever they can get. And it was really dope. Like, he introduced the film, and it was funny because at the end he's like, my mom says like people are gonna hate you, and I don't want to say why, but the mom was even clowning on him, like, oh my god, like why would you do that? But yeah, everybody like had a standing ovation kind of type of thing, like after the film, because it was like really dope. Like,
and everybody. A festival like that, like a film festival, like what's your experience going to it? Like, what was your experience like?
That one, I just went to one. I know, like, because it's kind of like every film festival I've gone to is a little bit, I think, different. Like, I volunteered at the Latino Film Festival here in San Diego last year, and I'm hopefully gonna volunteer this year as well. But that one, I feel like they have more like events in between.
Okay.
And I don't know the other ones, maybe because I don't live there, I can't attend everything. But like the Beyond Fest, like it was just like at what theater was it? I can't remember. I can't remember at the top of my head. But pretty much it was the theater. I think they have like little like a backdrop too, so if people want to take pictures and stuff like that. And then they have like the Q&A, the movie. They play some trailers, I think. Also to probably tell you like if there's anything else playing.
Yeah.
During the film festival, and then that was over. With over here with the San Diego. They've had like they had this thing called Sabor Latino, where they had like food, like culinary stuff.
Yes.
And then you get to mingle, and sometimes you even bump into like people that are showing their films there too, like independent films. So you might even see like famous people or indie people.
Hell yeah.
And then I participated in like they had like an artist market too, where like people can vend.
Oh yeah.
And I participated in that too. But they have little things, and they even have people like perform too, because it takes place like in Mission Valley mainly.
Yeah, which is super cool, because it's like you go there to see the films, but between different films, there's so much shit to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if maybe they do that with Beyond Fest too, but that I know, like from what I saw, it was just like movie screenings, like the movie screenings, the Q&As, and that's what I saw. Who knows if they have anything in between?
Which is still super dope. The Q&As and everything.
Yeah, because the fact that they get like the cast, and sometimes the audience can get to ask a question too.
And you get usually the Q&As after the movie or before?
Yes, after. Yeah.
But then you see like, oh my god, this actor on screen went through all this, and then they just walk out like that. It's like, it's almost surreal. It's like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah, no, it's funny because that one, there's like a goat in the movie. You have to watch the trailer, but there's a goat in the movie, and they actually had a guy dressed as a goat. Like,
just walk out?
Yeah, before the movie started. It was freaking hilarious.
Oh my god, I'm sure people love that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Is there any upcoming film festivals that you plan to go on to this year?
Yeah, I want to. Well, the one I just went to yesterday, it wasn't a film festival per se, but it was hosted and organized by the Oceanside International Film Fest.
Yes.
And so they have one coming up in February, and I kind of want to check it out. I know it's a little bit farther away, like it's like 45 minutes, but I might check it out. I heard like they play like really cool stuff, and they do more like documentary music stuff, I think is what they're mainly known for. But I kind of want to just check it out because I hadn't heard about it till last year.
Yeah.
Shout out to Sterling, because I met him at Comic-Con because of Beth when I was helping man down the Film Geeks booth. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'm part of the Oceanside Film Fest. I'm like, what? So I'm like, there's a film fest?
Oceanside?
Yeah,
Fuck
like,
yeah,
what?
right?
And so I was like, oh, shit. So then I just found out that it starts, they announced it yesterday, too, at the dinner, that it's about to start in February. I think like the second or third week of February.
Okay.
So I'll probably try to check that out if I can.
Yeah.
And then also like the Latino Film Festival, like San Diego Latino Film Festival.
Coming up soon, right?
Yes, it's coming out in March.
Hell yeah.
So I'm hoping to like volunteer there, and it's cool because what I love about volunteers is like not just helping the community, but I get to meet people too. I met a lot of people last year. I made a really great connections.
Hell yeah.
And then also like you get to watch films for free. So I was like, come on, like what else? Like, you know,
you win on multiple levels.
Beats that?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That? And you meet people too that I recommend. Like if you're down to like go there too, or if you even want volunteer opportunities, let me know and I can find out for you.
Cool.
It's cool because you can probably find guests for your podcast.
Exactly.
That's how I found people.
If I learn how to step out of my shell a little bit, which I'm trying, which I'm saying, that's why I put in the beginning that you were a huge inspiration. Just seeing like, hey, you know, might not always know what to say, but you just gotta go up and say something.
Yeah. As long as you don't freeze, you're good.
Don't freeze, which I have frozen before.
Oh, I've had
so
to. I have
you know,
to.
so it's like.
But you learn, you learn from it. Yeah.
You're just like unfreeze, you know. So, but Was there a movie? I know we talked about Godzilla -1, but was there a movie last year that you saw that kind of had an effect on you?
I think When Evil Lurks would be one, and then I'm trying to think. There was some that were non-horror. I think Blue Beetle. Honestly,
Oh, okay. Yes.
I'm gonna say because like that movie made me freaking cry. It was like the whole movie itself, and then even after because it was beautiful to see like a Latino like portrayed as a hero. Finally. Like I could
100%,
actually
yeah.
see myself.
Yeah.
Because I've always been like a Spider-Man fan.
Yeah.
But like Spider-Man is white. Like
Right.
let's be honest.
Yeah.
But like to see like him like be a Latino like and the whole cast also like. I'm not a huge like George Lopez fan, but like I loved like the whole cast. Like they killed it. Like
Hell yeah.
and the story, like I could finally like see different characters too. That like, oh, that reminds me of my sister. That reminds me of my grandma.
Hell
like it was really beautiful to see that on screen. So that's one of the films that for sure stood out for me. Blue Beetle.
Is that gonna have a sequel? Do you think?
I hope so. Like I was kind of bummed because I think what happened. I think the writer's strike might have happened around the time.
So they couldn't
And
promote it.
so they couldn't promote it. So I was trying to promote the shit out of it
Yeah,
as much
yeah.
as I could. I know I'm like just like one person,
But still.
But I was like trying to push it because I was like, go to the theaters, people. Like, because
Yeah.
if not, we can't get more of these films like people of color on the big screen, like behind and on the screen.
100%.
And so I'm hoping it does. Like I know it didn't meet what they wanted it to meet as far
Okay.
as like their budget and all that stuff, like what they spent on it. But I was like, I think it got a really great response, and maybe it's one of those films where it might have not done good at the box office, but it gets like a cult following maybe later on.
And at least maybe we could follow the director and the main actor and stuff like that in their
Yeah.
careers and support their future films, even if it's not
Yeah.
Blue Beetle,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah,
they.
because Cholo Maradueña, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's dope too. Like I didn't really care too much for what's the karate? Is it the Karate Kid show that's on Netflix? I forget the name of it. But he's a
Cobra
kid.
something.
Cobra Kai.
Yeah,
Cobra
yes.
Kai. He comes out in it, and I was like, when they announced Blue Beetle, I didn't put two and two together that it was the same kid. I was like, oh, it's him. But he also has a podcast too.
Oh,
And
damn.
I'm like, I'm trying to like manifest getting him on the podcast too.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Because it'd be dope to like. He also does music.
Oh, so it kind of fits into both.
Yeah,
you
he
know?
does kind of like it's kind of like alternative hip hop-ish type of thing. So I was
Nice.
like, oh, maybe like there's a connection right there.
Multiple connections.
Yeah,
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 that's super dope.
yeah.
Super dope. So Blue Beetle, I gotta put that on my list. I already have probably 4 or 5 things that before I leave here, I gotta write down and see When Evil Lurks, Blue Beetle, and others. And it's like, I am just excited about this year and everything
Yeah.
like that. I think a lot of great movies are gonna come out. I don't
Yeah.
even know any of the movies, but I'm
gonna be so bummed after I see this episode. I'm like, man, I could have said
could've
this.
said-
Well, actually, you
I
know
don't-
what? There's one I will say because we were talking back to Friday the 13th, actually, real quick.
Yes.
Before I forget, because I'm a huge, like I said, Jason fan. Like he's actually my favorite, like serial killer. I don't know why, like the hockey mask, something about it.
Okay.
And again, it was one of probably the first slashes before Freddy and that
Yeah.
I watched as a kid. Which again, I should have been watching that because that's a lot of like freaking slashing and nudity in,
Right.
in those movies. But I always been a fan of him, and I was kind of making fun of it with coworkers because I was like, oh, maybe you know what? Like just the other day, I had a realization. I'm like, maybe I'm a huge fan because like I can't swim and he drowned, so I'm like, maybe like there's that connection.
That
you
was
know?
extra fear where you're like, that could have been me.
And he's like mama's boy. Like I get
Yeah.
along with my mom, so I was like, maybe that's why. But I was like, so I've always like tried to stay on top of it. Like the movies haven't been the best. Like I know, like they're like the shitty. I think it's from the franchise is probably one of the shittiest ones. Like I think they're not like
Freddy
they're
vs.
not-
Jason was a nice high point.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and I like part 7, even though like the whole Carrie versus like the telekinetic versus
Yeah.
Jason. But I always loved it too because it always stood out to me, and that's like my favorite Jason look too, with like the chain that he had and everything. So I always like try to like, okay, when is it gonna come back? Because right now it's like the whole rights is a whole issue
Yeah.
with it, and that's why it hasn't been on the screen in a long time.
But the last one was a remake, right? Like a reboot or a
Yeah,
remake.
and that
like-
was the last time because I think right now I want to say it's like the creator and then the studio, like people are trying to fight for the rights. I think I remember something about that, and
Yeah.
I was like no wonder they haven't seen the screen. But right now they're saying that Brian Fuller, who's like one of my favorite, like he did Hannibal, like the TV show. I don't know if you ever
shit.
watched it.
Yes.
I love him because he does like really great shit, and so he's behind this. I think it's on Peacock or Hulu. They're gonna do Camp Crystal TV show.
Oh, okay.
Supposedly, and they've been saying that for like since last year, and it's supposed to be drops this year. Who knows if it's gonna still be postponed? But I'm excited to see his rendition of it too because I really like Brian Fuller.
And they could use like the Jason character in and everything.
yeah,
so
supposedly, yeah. So it's gonna be like a kind of like pre-Jason. I think like when he was younger. I think
Kind of like Bates Motel was like pre.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay, super sick.
So hopefully that, and I think maybe hopefully a movie. I want to see him on the big screen again. I love Jason.
Because the last one, what did you think of that? Because it was a little bit controversial. Some fans really loved it. Some fans didn't like it. But
I think I didn't like love it, but I just love seeing Jason on the big screen. And also like I'm a huge Supernatural fan, so Jared Padalecki was in it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
That's a
okay.
plus, right?
And I was like, yeah, I'll watch it. But I remember I went to go. I've seen most of the ones that, before I was a kid. I've seen them in theaters, like Freddy vs. Jason.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And where are we at with that? Like, how many sequels? Like, is there like 11, 10? Or...
So there was Jason X, so that's 10. 11 would be Jason versus Freddy, right?
Yeah, that's
Freddy
right.
versus Jason. And then 12,
the new one.
Right? So 12, I
so
think?
So they're ready for actually the 13th. That would
yeah,
be,
right?
That's the perfect one. Come on.
Maybe we should just do it.
Yeah, right?
Make
Exactly.
a fan film.
100%. No, and speaking of that, when... we both have aspirations to make a short film and stuff like that. So how are you going to manifest it this year?
Oh my God. Sometimes I'm like, man, I already said it. I got to do it. But I'm like, it's so hard. Like what I want to do is like, I know maybe we just talked about like fear, like not deterring ourselves. But for me, like I am like, I have to see it to be able to do it. So like I want to immerse myself more in like doing more hands-on stuff. And that's why I want to do more volunteer work for like here, like in San Diego or wherever I can get my hands on, like to do like crew stuff. To learn like production, because I want to kind of see it first before I can do it. Or maybe then some people say the opposite. They're like, some people say like, oh, go on a set, figure out how to do certain things, and then some other people are like, just fucking do it.
Yeah, no,
so
100%.
It's like, so it's like so I'm like, I'm trying to figure out a medium of like what I want to do, because I want to feel confident, like if I want to do, and I don't want to like half-ass it.
100%.
So
I'm in those same.
So maybe we can just collaborate together.
Right, 2024.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, because this is gonna be another reason of starting this podcast and everything like that is because movies is truly something that connects people. At least that's what I believe. Like, and I just have this premonition about this year. I don't know if it's because of election year or whatever, that it's just gonna get so bitter and divided, and just like people are gonna kind of like, because I've been through it so many times. I'm not a spring chicken. Like I'm 40, so it's like I've seen this pattern so many times. So it's like I now kind of preemptively was like, okay, like we're going through this again. Like, how can you figure out a way to find a way, even if you disagree or whatever, like connect with them through film.
Yes,
you know?
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Because I've seen people that I can't talk about anything else with them. We'd get into an argument, but film, like we could fucking like agree on the same things, and we could figure out a way to be cordial to each other and be friends and connect on that, and not so much focus on what makes us different or what divides us, but what do we love? Like, what connects us?
That's so true, because I think music and movies do that, where it's like you can have like the most variety crowd. You might not have like the same beliefs, morals, values, maybe, but then you like this one song or this one movie like connects you guys.
You can geek out on it.
Yeah,
exactly. And then you don't have to really even talk about anything else.
Yeah,
you know, because everything else is boring. Everything else is not important. What's important is that this fucking album's important. This movie is important.
Yeah,
you know, and getting passionate about that, as opposed to like, you know, there's just so much craziness.
Yeah, arguing about stuff that you can't. Sometimes we can't really change. And so I think with me, it's like, I think art is like the best way that 100%. I can at least like put something or give something back to the community.
Exactly. And it's healing, you know, for everyone.
Because I think like yesterday it was inspiring Joe, I think Mantegna or whatever. I forget how to pronounce his name.
Yes, I love Joe Mantegna.
Yeah, he's freaking dope. Like he said something along the lines about that, like the fact that he's like, I might not be like I am honored to play characters like first responders, like military, all these different things, even though I myself don't do it. And I'm grateful for the people that actually go and do this, but the fact that I'm able to portray these characters and show a light to them, and because somebody asked in the audience, which we were cracking up, like, oh, do you think like we shouldn't show certain violence type of stuff? And he was like, well, he's like, I get it, like we do have a responsibility, but then like, why should we whitewash it or sugarcoat it when like that's the realities of life? And that's why like I love hip hop, right? Like kind of putting it together here, like connecting the dots is like. In movies is the same thing as like hip hop, like it's like the rawness of like the real world. We're not sugarcoating it. Same thing with movies. Like, why are we gonna get rid of certain shit? If, like we see violence every day.
Exactly. Why are we gonna soften the blow and make it almost like it's just
like it doesn't exist? I'm like it exists. Like it is what it is, and it's obviously it does suck, but like art and movies, like it's a way, like you said, like kind of like merge people together and bring people together.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Even the craziest of movies.
Yeah.
You know, even the movies that you're like, oh my god, this is fucking wild. But if you connect around it, then it's a net positive, like for the world. You know. So, but fucking I'm just excited. I'm gonna check this. dude, like we're right at the time.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it was. Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
I'm trying to think of anything else. Because you mentioned like what movies like that sticked with me last year. Like there was because I had like a list of them, and I'm over here blanking out. But there was another one that I do want to mention. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
It's like a comedy. It's called The Bottoms. It's freaking.
I've heard of it.
It's freaking hilarious.
Okay.
It's like a. I never even seen Fight Club, like the full movie.
Yeah.
But it's like a Fight Club. Comedy version of like women, like kind of LGBT type of thing.
Yeah.
But it's hilarious. It's funny. It's like a feel good movie. Like
Bottoms.
I thought it was. Yeah.
And I've scrolled through it and I've seen it on the freaking thing. So it's like, and I heard a review come in one time where it was like they said it was fucking hilarious. So and now this is twice. So it's like this is added to my list of movies that now I have to see that Gabby has told me about.
Yeah, you have to watch it. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, because somebody else, I forgot who posted on their story, and I was like, oh, what is this? Because it wasn't even on my radar either. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch it, and it was freaking hilarious.
Hell yeah, and it's a comedy, right?
Yeah, it's a comedy.
Fuck yeah. I'm always looking for a good comedy, especially one that pushes the limits a little bit.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the comedies, like, some reason lately have been kind of safe or whatever, and it's like I was raised, like you said, in the '90s, where it's like the comedies were freaking. They were known for pushing the limits.
Yeah.
Yes, that was why people laughed. They were like, oh my god, I'm shocked.
And one thing before we get out here too, I feel like, I don't know, like this, I won't say like just this generation, but it's just like maybe in the place we're in society, like I feel everybody's so sensitive.
Exactly. No, I know.
It's like, I get it. I know there's sometimes like certain things I'm like, that I didn't like too. Like I watch like novelas now, and I'm like, this is so misogynistic or so toxic. But then at the same time, it's like, it's the era that it was created. Like I can't get mad at it. Like
there's that extra level of understanding where you're able to put things in the context of what they are.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and then you also realize that, damn, if I can't survive life being so sensitive. Like I've got,
you have thick skin. You gotta get thick skin. And it's like, you can't be like, I don't want people to censor shit either.
Exactly.
Like,
I'm totally anti-censorship. Yes, 100%. And that's why I love these film screenings and everything like that they're showing kind of these exploitation movies and everything, because it is kind of just wild. It's out there and it pushes the limits and it's risk-taking. And it's just, people need to, like, it's what the world needs right now because we are so censored. We are so afraid to be like, what if I hear or see something that I don't like? And it's like, well, you'll be fine, I promise you.
Or just don't watch it. I tell people, don't fucking watch it.
Yeah, exactly. Flip the channel. There's so many content
There's so many things to watch there. Like, if you don't like it, just keep going. Like,
exactly.
Like,
100%.
Keep scrolling,
100%.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can do this again in the near future.
Yeah, I'm down.
You know, maybe we'll get some movies together that we haven't seen, watch them, and then just talk about them after.
Yeah.
You know, something like
dope.
that. I know this wasn't really pre-planned.
Yeah.
I was supposed to send an email out.
Yeah, next time maybe I'll bring out like some DVDs or I have like a collection of stuff. Yeah.
We'll probably talk movies all day.
Yeah.
You know, and
I can do that. Yeah. Bring me anytime, man. I'm down to talk about movies anytime.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you, Gabby.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Movie Manny out.